It's possible that you have heard of Rayse. I certainly hope that you've heard about it because it is a new member benefit that launched recently at Heartland Multiple Listing Service. Today, we are so excited to welcome Christian Dwiggins onto the podcast. He is fresh off of the stage at Recharge. You might remember that last year, John Ketchum and I got to interview James Dwiggins, the other co-CEO at Rayse, after he got off stage at Recharge. I'm excited to talk to Christian and find out what else has been going on with Rayse and what we can expect from this awesome new platform. I'm Alex Gehring. This is Kansas City Real Talk.
Buying or refinancing a home in the Kansas City area? Make closing simple with Navy Federal Title Services. As a full-service title insurance agency, they help protect your property investment with thorough title searches, title insurance for buyers and lenders, and professional closing and settlement services. Their experienced team works closely with lenders and buyers to ensure every step of your real estate transaction goes smoothly, from verifying ownership history to coordinating a convenient closing. To learn more or get a quote, visit NavyFederalTitle.org and discover how Navy Federal Title Services can help you close with confidence.
Christian Dwiggins, welcome to Kansas City Real Talk. It is so great to have you, and you are fresh off stage as well. How is the crowd out there?
They're great. I mean, I love Heartland. My team loves Heartland. This has been so much fun just being here and seeing. We work in a virtual world so often, so we don't get to come out to meet the people we work with very often. And so when we do, it's so special. We really get to see the faces that we see in the Zoom box. We get to see them in real life, and so that's wonderful.
We talked to James a little bit last year. He was at Recharge. Are you his brother?
Yeah.
Okay. Brother. So have you been involved in the real estate world for as long as he has, or what's your overall story?
So we grew up in a real estate family, in a household. Our mom was an agent. Dad was a broker. Grandfather was a broker. My grandmother dabbled in real estate herself. So we were around it our whole lives. Probably the first words we learned was, contract or escrow or something, followed by a profanity. And I did my best to get as far away from real estate as possible. I joined the military right out of, I went to college for a year, and then I joined the military. And then out of the military, I went into entertainment. And then I was in entertainment for 20 years. And then I became a technologist, and I worked in various SaaS companies. And then James had this crazy idea and sucked me back into this whole industry, and Rayse was spawned. It wasn't called Rayse at the time. It was called Commission Facts, the worst name ever. But we were flying under the radar, so we wanted a terrible name so nobody paid attention to us. And then here we are. 4 years later, we have launched with 12 MLSs. Heartland being our most favorite. And I'm not just saying this because I'm here, but Heartland literally is the team's favorite MLS. And we just crossed double-digit adoption numbers at Heartland. But if I was to boil it down to the most simplest thing, it would just be this. Heartland cares, and they care deeply. And they're trying so hard to provide value hand over fist to their members. And in this climate where there's so much disruption coming towards MLSs, so much of this talk track is, new business models that are coming through that are really using MLSs as punching bags. I think it's important to remember that this is a relationship business. These are people who are trying to work with other people, shepherding them through the most expensive purchase and sales of their life. This is a home, the most important thing in people's lives. And I think if we don't stray too far from remembering that's what we want and try to connect and try to really add value and help people just deliver more value to their clients, I think everybody wins. And again, Heartland ends up at the top of that list. And even aside from all the the heavy mission statements, my operation team just loves working with Rob and the Heartland operation teams because they're eager to get things done. And Rob is, very, what's the right word? Passionate about, the way that things are operating and so forth. So we appreciate all of that because it makes our lives easier. And again, we, trying to deliver this mission, it just helps.
You talked a little bit already about what Rayse was born out of.
Mm-hmm.
How has it changed in the last year since we talked to James in this room?
A lot. Well, there's two main changes that have happened in the last year. One is our go-to-market. We'll talk about that for a minute, and then the other is the technology. So our first go-to-market was direct to brokerages. And for anybody who is listening, who is in prop tech, knows that direct to brokerage is a really difficult go-to-market. Brokerages have a myriad of things working against them, margins of nothing, agents who are temperamental, oftentimes understaffed in a way to roll things out. It's just inherently difficult. And it's hard to bank a new startup on that type of difficulty. So we had some really great traction at the beginning. And then as, the last 3 years have not been easy, first of all. And so as the market has been in its weird downturn, brokerages have been getting, squeezed tighter and tighter, and they just didn't have the appetite or the way to keep,
right,
putting out new products and that sort of stuff. So we had to pivot. And we're lucky enough to have James, who has these relationships, and decided to pivot towards MLSs and turn this thing into a member benefit. And that's been the largest change over the last year. We've deployed 12 MLSs. We are completely national. I like saying we got all four corners. Our 12th one got us into the fourth corners. So we're covered all of West Coast, most of East Coast, and now Heartland and a bunch of others in the central United States. So we have a pretty great footprint. And that's really helped us get, from a messaging standpoint, it's able to really clear our way to speak directly to agents. And this is an agent product. This is a platform built for an agent. It's been built by agents and brokers who have a need. It was spawned out of, the tumultuous lawsuit. Well, it wasn't really. The idea happened 7 years prior to the lawsuit. I had a dinner conversation with James and his now ex-wife and co-founder, Christine. It spawned out of a very simple struggle, which is, Christine worked so hard on a transaction, and then they got to the closing table, and the clients were like, I don't understand what you did, or why am I paying you this much money? And it became awkward, and she was really frustrated. That was the inception point. And James was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and track everything you've done on this next transaction so that you know exactly what you did. And that became obviously laborious, but that was the inception point. Like, let's solve this problem by starting to measure activity. And then cut to the lawsuit time, and it was the perfect time to sort of launch this. So yeah, we first went through brokerages, and that was somewhat successful, but as I mentioned, there were struggles, and then now we're with MLSs, and direct to agent is much better for us because we get to speak directly to the pain point. And again, this platform is built just for them, and the messaging is much cleaner, and obviously well received, as you can tell from the stage. So that was one of the biggest changes. The other one is the technology. So we first built Rayse with brokers in mind, which requires a lot of customization, a lot of branding, a lot of things that I, coming from outside of the industry, typically would deprioritize those things until the product had matured a bit. But this industry is unique in that way, and brokerages wouldn't adopt if they couldn't, brand it a certain way and all that kind of stuff. So we built a lot of stuff into the platform that was focused on that kind of go-to-market. And V1, V2 was well received, but it was still rigid. And it wasn't what I imagined the product to be.
When you say rigid, are you just referring to the UI overall?
The UI and the UX, yeah. The way that agents had to log activities was still a little cumbersome. It was highly customizable, but it was still work. And as you know, agents have enough work to do, and they have enough products to adopt, and anything that they think is, more work is troubling. So we got a ton of early adopters, but I quickly recognized that we needed to solve this one thing. So for the last 3 months, I went into my creative hole and decided how do I solve engagement? And interestingly enough, I went back to what I wrote that this product was supposed to be 4.5 years ago. It was then called the Samantha Project, and it was conversational AI. And I wanted the Samantha Project, nicknamed Sam, to be the digital assistant for agents that they can just speak with and log their activities, and the platform does the rest for it. And somehow the technology wasn't quite there, and we had to do all of this stuff, just to get into the market, et cetera.
4 years ago would have just been the advent of LLMs, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It hadn't really taken off yet. And then now, snap to today, and you can't get away from it.
Right. The last 3 months were the best possible time to be trying to integrate. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's now a commodity.
Yeah,
it's like,
that's right.
Everybody, if you're not doing that, you're behind the curve. So I almost feel like we're a little late in that regard. But
I don't think you're late at all. I think that if you would have been working on it much earlier than that, you would have spent a lot more money and probably a lot more time trying to develop it, would be my thought. A lot of the people that I talk to right now, if they started their project 1.5 years ago, honestly, if they started it 3 months ago, they'd be in the exact same point that they are now.
That's a good point.
With Replit and with Claude Code and all of this stuff being what it is.
Yeah. I
mean, it's a very different environment.
Well, thank you for saying that. It makes me feel better.
Oh my gosh, you should feel much better.
But yeah, the technology is there. And so we decided, okay, we're going to stop everything on our roadmap. We're going to solve this one thing. And so out of that spawned Ray. And so Ray is our conversational AI that we didn't slap on top of our platform. We built an LLM agnostic layer into our system. It's directly built into our APIs and our backend. We built it with security first. A number one question, and rightly so, by the way, number one question agents always ask is, what are you doing with my information? And they should. And they've been screwed by so many other, tech companies who have taken their information, sold it off elsewhere, or become part of something that they don't want to be part of. We know all those stories. And so we were very careful about how we went about that. So there is zero data that ever leaves our platform. The LLMs are... we can strap in any LLM that we want, and it's completely isolated inside of our API and backend. And we're really proud about building that way. A lot of companies are just slapping it over the top, and you don't really know what's happening with those, and are they training models or not? And none of that's happening with us. So those are the two big changes: our big go-to-market change and the big product change. And by the way, the adoption. For the first time, actually, I just got this metric yesterday on the plane. For the first time, our engagement numbers have surpassed our adoption numbers.
Wow.
So
that's very positive.
Yeah, super positive. So we're really proud about that. And that's, we've only launched a month. Yeah, like 4 weeks. So it's pretty new. And that's how quickly it's changed a lot of that. So
that's great. Well, so this next question is a little bit adoption adjacent, I think. So one of the old adages is that if you're trying, and obviously we're a member benefit, right? Rayse is now a member benefit. But if you're trying to reach everyone, if you're trying to win with everyone, you're probably losing, right? So I guess I'm curious, who is the primary target agent for Rayse?
It's a good question. If I'm going to be perfectly honest, I don't know that we have focused ourselves down into a target specific yet. There is an interesting number of new agents that are coming that I wasn't really prepared for. The product was designed for high functioning teams, high producing agents. And I had that in mind when we designed this thing. That agent who is running around with their hair on fire and they don't have the ability to update their clients every 5 minutes. And that was where I wanted the product to land. And that's happening. But we're seeing a very interesting trend, and it's towards newer agents. And the specific ask that's coming to us is, I want to log activities that I'm doing to better myself as a agent.
Yeah.
And I don't have a client yet. And I want to be able to somehow record the investment I'm making into myself. I come to recharge events.
Right.
I go to sales trainings. I take classes. I farm. All of this work that happens in the background, and clients have no idea about this. And that's the feature that's poking at me most, is to satisfy that. I think it's incredibly valuable to start tracking that type of stuff, so agents can be proud of, hey, this is who I am.
Yes.
I've invested this much time and energy into myself as a professional, and this is how I can win a client over somebody else, because they have proof of value and proof of work and so forth. So I think we're straddling somewhere between the 3 to 4 year old agent who is a hustler, who is really trying to expand their business and working really hard, to the younger agents who are trying to find a way to differentiate themselves. They like the new tool. They like how presentations shows them off in a new and fresh way. They like this movement we're calling Agent 2.0. And so we're seeing it trend that way. But I take any user at the moment. It's
of course.
It's useful for everyone. Who I don't think it's useful for, to be really frank, I think are the single agent killers. The ones who have been doing this for a while, who, they're going to be salty anyway and be like, I don't need any new tools. I got this. Right. And those probably aren't going to be our users. And respect, we want you make the industry look great. You are you're the pinnacle in what agents are striving to be. So, we love them. I just don't think they need that many tools, but maybe they do, and we're here for them too.
I also think that for some of those people, trying to boil down their work to a dollar per hour type of a setup is really difficult, partially because of what you just described, even with new agents, right? Okay, I am learning, I am refining my skill set. Well, these people have been refining their skill set through lived experience for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
And there is inherent value in that beyond just the physical hours spent. So the more that you can refine that process of putting in classes and lived experience and different things that you've gone through, I think that becomes a little bit more valuable even for those people.
It's an interesting point. We think that hours is a terrible metric for value for the reason you just described. I talked to a killer agent and they're like, if I can't put a buyer in a home after 3 showings, I did something wrong.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if you start measuring time spent in that regard, you are devaluing them by trying to put a metric that, no, this person's been working for 20 or 30 years on knowing how to be an expert, and they can do it faster than someone who doesn't. They don't need to be penalized. And we thought about that as we built the platform. So a lot of the metrics are you choose what you want to show. We have I forget the agent's name, but we had a killer agent here who did his sell transaction here in Heartland in like 30 hours.
Yeah.
And he was like, this is the fastest transaction I ever did. I wanted to give him the closing report because, we did all this great work. But I also don't want to highlight that it only took 30 hours. I'm like, yeah, well, then don't show them the hours, but show them everything else that you completed. Because all of the things that you had to do, you still had to do.
And all the lived experience that you
Right.
have made
Right.
it what was successful, not
Right.
the hours you
Right.
actually spent.
Right.
Yeah.
I had another guy, you made me think of this. I had another guy, this agent was in the San Francisco area and he'd been in it for 40 years. And he told me, I've bought or sold every home in this market, in this zip code, at least 3 times. And I was like, you don't need to say anything else except that.
No.
That's like your tagline. You're like, and have bought and sold every home here. Like, and we have, we did these master classes. We just had Marky Lemons on. I don't know if you've spoken.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Marky's, everybody.
She was also on last year, I think, wasn't
Yeah.
she? The year before. Yeah.
We love her to pieces. She's amazing. She preaches all of my top performers don't own a city, they own a zip code. And I was like, yeah, that's it. Like being so good at one particular area is just a really way to craft your skill set and be the expert that, clients are looking for. So anyway, a couple of things that just popped in my head.
Well, I guess so in the future, will some of that sales data then be pulled into Rayse in order to show an agent's level of expertise in a given zip code?
Probably. I don't like the standard metric that, agents use. I don't think consumers care that much. Like there's so much braggadocious around, oh, I've done 500 million in volume or
Right.
something. Clients don't care. They don't care about that. I sold 100 homes. Maybe that one works. So probably we're going to include everything and let the agents choose what they want to show. But right now we're focused on what clients are telling us. We do a lot of surveys. We go out and talk to consumers often to find out what they're really thinking. And that was, part of my presentation is, all of these survey results around what consumers actually think about agents and what they want from their agents, et cetera. And that should be the driver. Instead of, the industry thinking they know what clients want. I think we need to be listening a little bit more to what they're saying and what they're asking for. We might be in less lawsuits if we did that.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of, James is a very vocal advocate for full public marketing of every listing, specifically to avoid the idea that we're hiding inventory from certain groups of people, and I'm sure for other reasons that he could articulate better than I could. But is this product, Rayse, is it related to, or I guess the question is, how does it relate to that overall belief that I assume you probably also have?
It's simple for me. Transparency wins.
Yeah.
And I really don't like that transparency is being used in a nefarious way. Because the truth is that consumers need to be educated on all of the transaction, and agents are the guide for that. And so, we just think that transparency is the silver bullet. This notion that consumers want to hide their homes from public viewing seems beyond silly to me. I don't know how you make that logic make sense. I mean, sure, if a consumer wants that, then sure, they do. And look, I worked I worked at the agency group. I helped run my best friend's team in Beverly Hills. That's a high performing luxury real estate team. I know who those clients are and why they don't want to be on public record. In that context, makes 100%, that makes all the sense in the world. But you know what? Those are $500 million homes. Those are $40 million homes. These are celebrities. Those are not the people that are being talked about in this general sense of consumers who don't want, they want to test the market or whatever. I don't know. It just seems so silly to me. I can't even believe that this is a conversation that we're having openly, because it just seems so wrong. It just seems so wrong. James, obviously James and I share the same point, and how Rayse relates is that, we are transparency through and through. This is what an agent is, and this is what agents do. And if agents don't start pushing back, and if they don't start crafting a new narrative from grassroots and being like, this is what this industry is about, then more and more of this noise is going to get louder and louder and louder, and we're going to lose. And I don't think that's, I don't think this is where this industry wants to go. I don't think that this is for consumers. I think this is for a business model. So
when you say we're going to lose, what do you mean by that?
I think there will be more and more disruption, and typically the quietest voices tend to lose in those scenarios. I'm not trying to lay out any predictions. I'm not in this industry enough. James is the expert in terms of that. I'm 100% focused on agents and making agents win. And I think the more and more you confuse consumers, agents have to shoulder that responsibility, and it makes it harder for them. There's more confusion in the market. The face of this market is an agent. It's just not a good look. And then we're going to end up with more lawsuits. And then who pays for that? Well, okay, the brokers now pay for that. Great. So, or the MLSs have to pay for that, or
eventually who's left for the agents?
Yeah. So yeah, it just seems silly to me, honestly. It's a cutthroat business decision, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
For now, agents need to just focus. As I said on stage, there's a lot of noise, and they need to not worry about that noise, and they need to just do what they do, which is providing great value to their clients. And for me, the force multiplier on that is just show your work. And I don't care if it's Rayse. There aren't a lot of other products like us out there. I hope more will come. But transparency platforms, I think, are key. Like, let's just show. There's a funny analogy. James and I, the thing we hate the most is when we get a lawyer bill. And, we look at the invoice and we're like, there's no way we spent that much money on our lawyers. There's no way. And then you look through the invoice, and every single thing, you're like, okay, phone call, text message, phone call, thinking time. You're like, when you get to the end, you're like, yeah, I guess that's it. I can't dispute that everything that you did is clearly there, and that's what I owe. I can't think of another industry besides real estate that doesn't have that type of transparency. Look, you can't even buy a pizza without full transparency, right? You can see when it gets into the oven. You can see who put it in the oven, who's picking it up. You can talk to the guy, see the reviews, give him instructions, see when it lands, how long it's going to take. Like $20 pizza, and you get all that transparency. But here in real estate, agents are just doing all the hard work, and they have no tool to really show all of that work. It's just, it's just kind of hidden behind this black box type idea. So,
and on the other end of things, the agent that I kind of described before that isn't providing great value necessarily to their client,
That certainly
and who
doesn't
is
help.
flying by the seat of their pants.
Yeah.
They don't really have a lot of pressure to disclose everything that they're doing, since the agents who are doing all of that work aren't necessarily being as transparent about how much value they are providing.
Yeah.
It goes both ways,
Yep.
and it's a problem for really maybe everybody.
Yep.
So
Yeah. And I hope maybe Rayse is an accelerant for that as well. So for those that are crushing it are going to keep showing their work, and those who aren't going to want a transparency platform, and consumers will catch on, and maybe this is a slight accelerant for quality control industry-wide.
Interesting, Christian. Well, this has been an awesome conversation, but there's a question that I always have to ask.
Sure.
Is there anything else that we should have talked about that we haven't yet today?
What do you do?
What do I do?
Yeah.
I work in communications
Oh,
with the
okay.
association in MLS.
All right. Amber's here sitting with us, and she doesn't have a microphone, but I was curious what she did.
She does have a microphone. You know what
Oh,
she
she
does?
does.
She keeps me on task and makes sure that, like for this, it's like without Amber, nothing would happen with the podcast. There is no question about it. But anyway, well, Christian, this has been great, and thanks for being with us today, both on the podcast and also on stage for Recharge.
Love it.
Great talking to you.
Love being here. I love Heartland, so thank you so much.
Absolutely.